17th Prime Minister of the Democratic Socialist Republic.
So nearly all of us in this room are very much like her in our academic pedigree, but we are not Prime Minister. And so we appreciate very much your being with us today. We have no doubt that you, in your position, deal with some testy people in some testy meetings, but rest assured that here today, you are among friends, colleagues, and indeed admirers.
The countries and the people of South Asia historically have played a significant role in shaping world history, culture, and politics. This continues to be true today as well. South Asia is a wellspring of ideas, movements, and events that have influenced the world at civilizational, societal, and individual level. Concepts and practices such as meditation and mindfulness are now parts of the lexicon of busy executives from the Silicon Valley as well as Bengaluru. Yoga and Ayurveda have entered into mainstream life. As I used to step out of my accommodation at Edinburgh, right across the road was a yoga and well-being center, and I used to be often struck by how well, in many ways it's been co-opted in those kinds of contexts as well. Curry is now combined with German sausages as well as in Japanese comfort food. Migrant communities from South Asia are visible in every part of the world, not just in the traditional areas of education, technology, and entrepreneurship, but also in arts, culture, and politics. For far too long, South Asia was viewed by an Orientalist worldview, and it's great to see that perspective shifting, not just in scholarship, but also through art and literature. However, beyond this, how much does the world understand South Asia and how it matters? Do they know it's one of the most diverse regions of the world, culturally, linguistically, and geography? The world's perceptions about South Asia, its role and importance in world politics, will shape our future political and economic trajectories. It will impact on how much FDI flows into the region, whether people engage in trade or how they engage in trade with South Asia, enroll in our universities, and for countries such as ours, how many tourists visit us. Also, our regional identity is important to South Asians as we navigate relations and choices amongst ourselves. Can we come together as a region to invest in ourselves and our future? Have we created conditions for our businesses, for our entrepreneurs to cooperate across national boundaries? How do we ensure political stability and peace in our region, in our seas, in our skies? Or at the more personal level, how do we see a future for our children and our young people in our countries today? Therefore, on the topic, South Asia in world politics, I hope to focus on some aspects of South Asia that have impacted on the world, how it is navigating the present times, and how this region, especially its people, who I believe is its most potent resource, can shape the 21st century. As we all know, the geography of South Asia is one of the most important factors that has shaped its history and role in world politics. The rivalry over Afghanistan between Imperial Britain and Tsarist Russia that Rudyard Kipling described as the great game in his novel Kim in 1901 is one example of how it has impacted us and our histories. Spices of South Asia have been a valuable trading commodity since antiquity. Trade routes traversing South Asia played an important role in the world economy. Those trade routes were the communication highways of the ancient world, conveying not only goods, but inventions, beliefs, ideas, people, and cultures. Across the centuries, South Asia became a crossroad where Arab merchants and later the Portuguese, the Dutch, British, and many others converged, transforming it into a meeting point of commerce, ideas, religion, and cultures. The region's role in world politics is also tied up with the critical sea routes in the Indian Ocean through which a large share of global energy and trade passes, giving it enormous strategic value. Therefore, for instance, maintaining a peaceful maritime environment in a region critical to global commerce is another global role fulfilled by South Asia, one that we are experiencing every day these days, and that impacted on Sri Lanka not very many weeks ago in very significant ways. As a South Asian nation in the Indian Ocean, Sri Lanka is committed, therefore, to extending her fullest support in ensuring maritime safety and security in the region. In this region, apart from our location, Sri Lanka's strength lies in being an open and reliable partner committed to cooperation, connectivity, and mutually beneficial partnerships, and hopefully as a country that all of our South Asian neighbors can visit without any constraints. Engagement with countries in our neighborhood is a priority for us as we seek to maintain our sovereignty and independence. When you talk about South Asia in world politics, the history of colonialism and its impact on South Asia as well as the rest of the world is an integral part of the discussion. The gems, spices, and fine linen of South Asia lured explorers and kings, including Alexander the Great, Prince Henry the Navigator of Portugal, and Robert Clive of England. Ultimately, those riches also resulted in a succession of European colonial powers subjugating South Asia. The riches that lured colonial powers to Asia and launched the age of exploration and even the discovery and colonization of the Americas through interest in finding a route to the rich lands of India and China led to competition among European powers to reach the riches of the East and has had a profound impact in Europe, creating new alliances and dynasties. The 7 Years' War, which was the last major conflict before the French Revolution to involve all the great powers of Europe, arose from a dispute over the territories of Austria and Prussia. However, it also involved overseas colonial struggles between Great Britain and France, while the main focus being the struggle for control of North America and India. The Opium Wars were not simply a conflict between Britain and China. Under a tightly controlled British colonial monopoly, India was the world's primary producer of opium. Opium cultivated by Indian farmers was processed and exported to China, providing the revenue and agriculture production and maritime networks that sustained British trade with China. And India was considered the jewel in the crown of the vast British Empire, depicting its economic and political significance. Likewise, during the First and Second World Wars, millions of soldiers from across the region answered the call to serve, making immense sacrifices in conflicts that reshaped the international order. South Asia's central role in the imperial system reshaped the political and economic landscape of the region itself, as well as those of Europe. The modern political landscape of South Asia, as we all know, was profoundly shaped by colonialism, which transformed the region's economic structures, institutions, and systems of governance, while deepening its integration into global affairs. Our struggles building nation states out of that colonial history, managing the rich diversity within our borders, our struggles with democracy, lawmaking, institutional building, education, our search to find our voices, our languages, cannot be disconnected from that colonial history. The transition of power from colonial rulers to local rulers wasn't always smooth, didn't necessarily lead to democratization, inclusion, and justice for all of our peoples. Building the post-colonial nation state is still a work in progress for most of South Asia. Yet, the resilience of our people, particularly our young people, as well as their continuing search for something better, more just, has significantly influenced our countries throughout history. Some of these struggles, I think, and I say this with all due respect to all of you here, have been most sensitively portrayed in the rich tapestry of post-colonial literature that has grown out of our region, and through theatre and arts, perhaps even more influentially than through our scholarship. South Asia is home to an extraordinary mosaic of languages, religions, and ethnicities. It stands as a testament to centuries of cultural exchange, where different traditions have interacted, evolved, and enriched one another. This diversity has been one of South Asia's greatest strengths, fostering resilience, creativity, and a shared heritage across generations. South Asia's remarkable diversity has also nurtured traditions of coexistence, where different faiths and communities have lived side by side, contributing to a shared sense of regional identity that transcends linguistic and national boundaries. Even cricket, passionately followed by most of us in South Asia, has often become a unifying thread that connects millions beyond borders. At the same time, this remarkable diversity has also been a source of deep conflict and division. The colonial ruling apparatus that sought to manage this diversity left a legacy of exclusion and marginalization that many of our nations are still struggling to overcome. Along with democracy, we also saw the impact of majoritarianism and extreme ethno-religious nationalisms that emerged in our newly independent nation states. Whipping up ethno-religious nationalisms for political power has been an unfortunately disproportionate in our political theaters, in our political movements. As the international order took shape in the New World, different regions of Asia embarked on distinct economic trajectories. While East and Southeast Asia witnessed rapid industrialization and remarkable economic transformation during the 1960s and 1970s, South Asia's economic resurgence gathered momentum later, particularly following the wave of economic reforms initiated in the 1990s. Sri Lanka started a couple of decades earlier in the late 1970s. Today, the region stands at a pivotal moment in its development journey. With its vast human capital, expanding markets, and growing integration into the global economy, South Asia possesses immense potential to emerge as one of the principal engines of global growth in the decades ahead. From the late 20th century into the 21st century, South Asia experienced major social and economic transformations, including population growth, urbanization, and economic liberalization. Efforts aimed at regional cooperation increasingly took shape during this period, including the establishment of key regional groupings such as SAWP and BIMSTEC. Presently, South Asian countries must traverse a landscape of opportunities and vulnerabilities resulting from fluctuating alliances, disruptions to supply chains of global commerce, climate change emergencies, and new technologies. The region still lags behind in terms of regional economic integration, and therefore many of its main markets remain in Europe and America. South Asia's poor physical connectivity makes regional trade extremely expensive. Therefore, South Asian nations have been pursuing an increasingly diverse range of mutually beneficial partnerships with the world. Increasingly, it is forging alliances with other regions by the need to maintain economic growth and reduce poverty. India, for example, in January 2026, entered into a landmark free trade agreement with the EU, which is being called the mother of all deals, as it represents about a third of global trade. Same time, India has also strongly pursued such economic partnerships with other regional and economic giants, both regionally and in other parts of the world. South Asia collectively represents 21% of the world's population, making it one of the most significant regional blocs in terms of human capital. Its youth bulge presents both opportunities and risks in terms of competition for jobs and employment. South Asia was one of the fastest growing economic regions globally in the early 2020s. Yet, we must acknowledge that while South Asia has demonstrated its ability to grow and become a major economic center, problems of increasing inequality, widening disparities between the rich and poor, rural and urban communities, the continuing poverty and underdevelopment among historically marginalized communities and regions will continue to be a source of instability unless we take these issues seriously. South Asia's growth is expected to slow in 2026, and headwinds from global energy market dislocations. Several South Asian economies heavily rely on imported fuel, which leaves us exposed to volatile global prices. Recent World Bank analysis points to disruptions in global energy markets as a key reason regional growth is expected to slow, underscoring how external energy shocks ripple through national budgets and household costs. South Asia is also heavily impacted by weighty effects of climate change, which we are experiencing right now in Sri Lanka. South Asia's climate is largely shaped by the seasonal monsoon rains that are critical to the rain's agriculture and water supply systems. But monsoon seasons are no longer predictable, the seasons are not as clear as they were, and we are paying a heavy price for all of this. The region is experiencing a new normal of intensified extreme weather events such as floods, landslides, droughts, and cyclones. These trends are estimated to have serious implications for the region's economy and population. Despite political differences, complex security dynamics, external pressures, and energy and climate-related vulnerabilities, the people of South Asia have also demonstrated remarkable resilience. While the region has faced its share of challenges, it has largely avoided the scale of prolonged regional destabilization witnessed in several other parts of the world in recent times. This resilience provides a strong foundation upon which South Asian nations can deepen regional cooperation, strengthen mutual trust, and advance sustainable growth and shared prosperity. Looking ahead, South Asia is uniquely positioned to shape the next chapter of global development and innovation. Home to one of the world's largest and youngest populations, the region possesses a demographic advantage at a time when many advanced economies are confronting aging populations and shrinking workforces. This youthful energy, combined with an increasingly educated and skilled workforce, provides an exceptional foundation for sustained progress. Across the world, the South Asian diaspora continues to distinguish itself in business, technology, medicine, academia, the arts, public services, and entrepreneurship, demonstrating the region's immense human capital and its capacity to drive innovation, create knowledge, and contribute to global development. South Asia is equally well placed to seize emerging economic opportunities. As global supply chains diversify and new centers of manufacturing and services continue to evolve, the region has the potential to become an increasingly important hub for investment, production, and trade. Deeper regional connectivity and economic cooperation could unlock vast untapped potential benefiting all of our peoples. But most importantly, South Asia has also an immense legacy of philosophical thought and ideas that make our region unique in many ways. Each of our countries has a strong history in progressive political and social movements that shaped us at critical moments. These progressive movements have also been able to rise above the boundaries or divisions between nation states to collaborate, to promote collaboration as scholars, as artists, as people. I am reminded in particular about South Asian feminist networks that have consistently worked together and continue to work together. This is something precious that we need to protect and strengthen in these turbulent times. South Asia today stands at a decisive crossroads. We can allow structural inequalities to deepen, climate change to undermine our development, and democratic institutions to lose public confidence. Or we can choose a different path, one in which democracy is strengthened, development is more inclusive, and every individual can live with dignity and opportunity. Sri Lanka's own transformation remains a work in progress. Institutional reform requires patience, intellectual humility, continuous self-reflection, and the courage to confront difficult truths. But our direction is clear. We remain committed to building a transparent, accountable, inclusive, and compassionate state that governs not over its people, but with them. Ultimately, the future of South Asia will not be determined solely by shifts in global power or economic competition. It will be shaped by the strength of our democratic institutions, the inclusiveness of our development, and our collective willingness to imagine new possibilities for justice, equality, and regional cooperation. The many success stories across the region demonstrate what can be achieved through sound policies, openness, and investment in people. In Sri Lanka, we look forward to strengthening partnerships with our South Asian neighbors, as well as beyond South Asia, in pursuit of shared prosperity, guided by the enduring belief that there is far more that unites us than divides us. We must take these success stories to the world. For far too long, we were seen as a region of extremes of wealth as well as poverty, extremes of cultural practices, education, and health outcomes. As South Asian nations, we need to show the world that we are transforming our economies, transforming our societies. Middle classes are emerging all over, new partnerships are consolidating, and that the region presents great opportunities for economic and political and cultural engagement for mutual benefit. We count on the participants of this conference to present a more nuanced understanding of South Asia to the world, not only to the world, but also for ourselves and in particular to our leaders. We in Sri Lanka hope that a strong South Asia, with its key strengths and opportunities in geography, natural resources, and most importantly in our people, can continue to play a positive and transformative role in influencing world politics in the next century. Thank you very much. Institutional building, education, our search to find our voices, progress for most of South Asia. Yet, the resilience of our people, South Asia's remarkable diversity has also nurtured traditions of coexistence.
And the other with regard to the country's economy. First, I know that you are extremely committed to educational reform. And I wonder to what extent the international community, especially the South Asian countries, can help Sri Lanka in the reforms that you are trying to pursue.
Thank you. You know, when you think about education in Sri Lanka, we have, I think, a very unique history and a very unique legacy. We were one of the countries that established free education and also free health even before independence. Whether the aspirations of free education were fully met is a whole other question altogether, but we have that infrastructure in place, and I think that's a really, really important legacy for us to continue to protect and nurture. What we are trying to do right now is, well, I think in some ways we are trying to address an issue that is perhaps common across South Asia, and this is the excessively competitive nature of our education systems, the very exam-driven education system where kids are usually taught to pass exams and not much else, leading then to limited opportunities when they actually leave school and enter either higher education or the world of work. So we are trying to make this pedagogical shift in our education system where rather than the education system focus merely on passing examinations and qualifying for higher education, that kids are exposed to more opportunities, more professional pathways right from the beginning, and also something which is focused on a more sort of a holistic idea of education, where education is not seen simply as something that's training you for a job, but also preparing you for a role as a responsible citizen. In Sri Lanka in particular, one thing that we need to be mindful of is that our education system was it has always been a really important pathway for social mobility. And one of the other problems that we are dealing with currently is that that itself is also becoming limited in that even though we have free education, your ability to spend privately on education is determining how much success you have through our education system. So these are some of the changes we are trying to bring about. I think much of what we are dealing with is quite common across South Asia, and it would be really useful to have an engagement, I think regionally, on some of these issues. Internationally, I think what we are looking for, well, we've looked at certain models that we could perhaps adapt to our own circumstances, but I think right now what we are looking for is, well, let me put it this way. I mean, Sri Lanka is often talked about as an education hub, and we have lots of education providers, international education providers who come here, but who don't necessarily offer the same standards of education for our students that they would back home. Right? And this is also something that we are trying to really regulate through this emerging phenomenon of transnational education. And I think more cooperation and dialogue on what this transnational education really means and how it can be more equitable is also something that it requires more dialogue and engagement.